Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We're on episode 142. And how are you doing on this beautiful Saturday morning, sir?
Good.
It's warm.
Good. It's very warm, muggy.
Yeah, the past couple days have been. Yesterday, I was out actually with an athlete that I train. He's a football player at Westminster College, and he had long story short, he had a little bit of a foot injury that he's been rehabbing for the past couple months, and he's almost back. He's been cleared by the doctor, and he's almost back, but he's not quite full speed. In his opinion, there's a little bit of some stuff lagging, and he's like an elite level athlete, so there's like specifics that he picks up on that are, you look at him and watch him move, and there's probably like a normal person would say he's back in full swing, but there's a little bit like 99.5% on, so that 0.5% is off. So we went to a field up at a local high school and did some work together, and it was like a million degrees. It actually got to the point where, as we were leaving, I was like thankful to be done because of the turf being so hot on my feet, which is rare because usually I have pretty good, like endurance or like pain tolerance, I guess, or whatever. Yeah, for everything. And it was getting really hot. But we always say how much we like the warm weather. So have you been able to get outside and enjoy it?
Oh, yeah.
Or at least be productive in it?
I've been outside every day this week. So I think it was Thursday. In the late, or maybe it was yesterday.
Uh-huh.
Well, yesterday or Thursday, in the late afternoon, it was like a late spike in temperature. Like I went into the office for a few minutes, and it was like 91 when I left my truck. And when I got out back into the truck, the thermostat read like 105, and I was like, "How? How? It's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. How did it get so much hotter in the evening?"
Yeah, it seems like we're in that weird part where I don't want to wish fall to be here. Trust me, I don't want to wish summer away, but it's like we're in that weird spot where mornings are cool and afternoons are very hot. So the temperatures, I don't want to say unpredictable, but there's a decent amount of variance between the morning and the night, like as it goes through. But I don't know, man. I told you before that I've like found this newfound obsession with like outdoor work. Mm-hmm. Like yard work and housework and stuff that I can do outside. And I think that part of it, like for me, at least, is it's like there's no better feeling than productivity.
Yeah.
And there's some things that you do around the house. Well, like, first of all, I'm not always afforded the opportunity to do as much as I want to just because of work elsewhere, like specifically at the gym during the summertime. And then obviously school getting started in a couple weeks. But when I do have the opportunity, there's still some things at home that when you do and you are productive, it's not long lasting. So like an example would be laundry. Like laundry is something that you do continuously and it's like never ending.
Yeah.
Because
you get that instant gratification when you're completely done.
Yeah.
And then it's like, but I'm not done because I'm wearing clothes.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. The clothes you have on, you're never done. So it's like, so stuff like that really doesn't have like lasting impact. Whereas like yard work, again, that's something that's essentially never finished, and like when you mow the lawn it grows back, but there's a little bit of like complacency time where you look at it, you're like, okay, it looks good now. Like one of the things that I had done was with my house recently was have it professionally like pressure washed and had the roof cleaned because like from the previous owner there was a little bit of like some moss or some type of like growth on the roof, so had that taken care of and stuff. And that like is a lasting impact where it was like, okay, this looks good now. So little things like that go a long way. I don't know if that's kind of why I've had this obsession with yard work, or maybe it's just like home ownership in general where you like kind of take control of something and there's a little bit of pride that goes into it.
I was just getting ready to say, I think it's a level of pride. When you pull in your driveway after a long day and the yard looks good.
Yeah.
And your headlights sweep across the house and everything's put together. It's like, I did that.
Yeah, and I don't like ever have, I'm a very like non-superficial person.
Yeah.
Like I don't care what clothes I wear or how I present myself. I mean, professionally I do, but in terms of like that stuff, like I don't need necessarily nice things to validate any work on my end. But there's still that little bit of like pride that goes, or should go, I think, into like everything you do.
Right.
So like like my car, like I try to keep my car clean both inside and out. Now I drive a black vehicle, so it's not always feasible to keep the outside super clean, especially in the winter. But like those are things that I at least try to maintain a certain level of, just
Mm-hmm.
because of I think that I feel good about it,
Right.
and there's like you said that little bit of self pride because honestly, that's one of the problems that I see. I'm going to sound like an old man here, but I have to put the teacher hat on for a moment. That's things. Those are things that like are lacking in society, especially with kids nowadays. Is at least like the area that we live in. I'm sure that this is a problem elsewhere too, but I can only speak to the specific school that I teach at or whatever. But it seems like kids don't have pride with stuff, like some of the work that they turn in, or their homework or the effort they put forth. They're okay just like giving bare minimum just to get by instead of trying to excel a little bit. And part of that is my responsibility. It may not be my fault that it's like that, but it's my responsibility to try to change it and to try to motivate and stuff like that. So I'm accepting of the challenge, but it would be nice if everybody had a little bit more pride in how they conduct themselves.
Absolutely.
So,
And
that's kind of.
speaking of yard work, it was getting dark last night. I just got home from work and the neighbor was mowing his yard.
Uh huh.
And I have put mine in the yard off for almost 2 weeks. I just
Yeah.
have been so busy.
Sometimes it's inevitable that you have to.
And haven't had that warm feeling pulling in the driveway, with the dandelion sticking up 2 foot and
Yeah.
just looking terrible.
Uh huh.
The wife says, "It sounds like the neighbor's mowing the yard." And I was like, "I got headlights on that new tractor. I mowed the grass last night at 9:30 in the dark." But yeah, I still have to finish it. Obviously, I can't do the trim work in the dark, but it burned that whole day, I guess, right? And that was fun.
Yeah.
I've never mowed the grass in the dark.
Yeah. Now piggybacking like off of that whole topic of doing yard work and being productive and stuff. We mentioned this last week, and it was a talking point that you and I wanted to like circle back to. And I actually thought about it on the way to meet you, and you said likewise. You thought about it in the shower this morning, like, oh yeah, we got to talk about that because it's something that you and I kind of had an off-air discussion about, and thought that it would be, maybe helpful, even just for us to
Probably more for me than anybody else, I feel like.
to kind of vent about. So the topic that you and I spoke about off air was like helping people.
Yeah.
And not that we want to make ourselves out to be like, candidates for sainthood here, but I feel like something that I can speak confidently in is you and myself. We both take pride. There you go. Take pride in helping other people and trying to be as giving of our time as possible. Now, I think that has a little bit more to be said, just by the simple fact that you and I don't have a lot of time either.
Yeah.
So then, not that my time is worth more than anybody else's time, but it's a little bit more scarce than some other people's time. So maybe there's like a higher value placed on it. I don't know. I don't want to like assume that my time is more valuable than anybody else, but you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So
When you
and
have
I,
inevitably have less of it,
yeah,
you have to be more selective of how you use it.
absolutely. So you and I are two people that genuinely take pride in helping other people and try to give and as much as we can. And the conversation that we had stemmed around, is there a point of helping people too much? Um, and I think that we both definitively came to the conclusion that yes, you can't help too much. And I honestly think that anybody that would disagree with that, um, perhaps just hasn't put themselves in that type of a position yet.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say, oh, you can never help too much, you can never be too giving, I think there's a time where you can be. And you would have a little bit more of a foundational understanding of that if you ever put yourself in that scenario.
Yeah.
So, like, thinking back to a couple examples in my life, and I'd like you to share, for the listeners too, things that you have. For me, it was when I was coaching football, where I talked about this before, several times, especially on some older episodes, about how when I was coaching football, one of the things that was very difficult for me was to like pump the brakes and not be full gas all the time. Like, I had a parent of a former player, and I also work with his current son in the gym, or his younger son in the gym currently, said to me that I can't always be in combat mode all the time. But it was hard for me to not be 100%. So I wasn't coaching football for 10 weeks or whatever out of the year, 12 weeks, 14 weeks out of the year, like normal coaches. So I was in charge of all their strength programming. So sometimes there was months during certain years where I was the only coach that they would really have much communication with or contact with. So when I tell you it was 365 days a year, that's literally what it was. Like I had my social media up just for the point of scheduling things and talking to parents and posting things about football, and was like really, really over the top with how deeply entrenched I was in it. So then what happened is over time, I started becoming obsessive, and I started going out of my way to do everything for every athlete. Like I had two athletes, this is several years ago now, but I had two athletes that had a college visit scheduled for a school that was 6 hours away, and their parents couldn't take them. So I drove them 6 hours to the college visit, stayed there for several hours, obviously, and then drove 6 hours back at night. And those were types of instances that I did, not necessarily with the travel, but I did stuff like that pretty regularly, just because I wanted to try to help as much as I could. And it was really beneficial to me, like moving to a new area, because then I established myself as like, whatever, a good person. People took
Right.
note of that and was like, man, he really gives his time. But then what slowly happened is my life started falling apart in a sense, because I had no time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, I was working at the gym at the time and teaching at the time. So with me, I don't want to make it out to be more than it was, but it was almost like I had three full-time jobs between teaching, training at the gym, and coaching, which is basically where I'm at now. But instead of coaching football, I'm coaching clients online. But that's a little bit more of my time being allocated when I want it to be, and then also the fact that I'm a little bit mature, so I can handle it now. Um, but regardless, that kind of like made me realize that it was difficult for me to give everything to everybody and nothing to myself. And then likewise, that mentality kind of took over at school, and then I became the person that couldn't say no to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt guilty saying no, and I think that people use that as leverage, not maliciously. Like there was no malicious intent,
Yeah.
but they would like, hey, we need a fifth grade basketball coach. Can you coach our fifth grade girls basketball program? Okay, yes, I will. Hey, we need someone to coach high school softball. They need an assistant. Would you? Okay, yes, I will. And that happened to the point where I would volunteer for everything, like after school programs, multiple sports across multiple grade levels. And it just broke me down. And then I remember when I started to try to take control of those things, because I was cognizant of the fact that, like, hey, you can't be full go like this all the time, where I started to try to pull the reins a little bit. And again, this was not malicious either, but I got a lot of guilt tripping. Like there was no bad or malintent behind it, but parents started guilt tripping me, like saying like, oh, well, my son says he's not going to play football if you're not coaching. And I actually had parents that, believe it or not, as crazy as it seems, I actually had parents that like cried when I told them I wasn't going to coach anymore. So like it was very, very hard then for me to
Yeah.
step away too. But that was kind of my first reality check on, can you give too much to other people? And then since then, being self-aware of that, I've noticed myself still like kind of falling back into that. And you were the one who brought it up to me
Yeah.
initially, I think, that topic. So like what's been going on with your life that you've like had this like, not necessarily an epiphany, because it's something that you learn like gradually over time, but what's been going on that made you ask that question, if you think you can help people too much?
So for me, it's a lot of the same. It's different, but it's a lot of the same. I'm the guy that's always says yes. You know, hey man, I need to load firewood. All right, I'll be right over.
Yep.
Uh, hey, I my outbuilding fell over. We need to clean it up. I have no help. Can you help me? Yeah, no problem. Let's do it. Always doing yard work, hauling stuff, moving people, just any of that. Like it's more labor stuff for
I was
me.
just going to say it sounds more labor intensive than
Yeah.
my
So
stuff, but
when people need a mule, they call me because I just do what I do what people need.
yeah,
I've always been that way. For as long as I can remember, even when I couldn't do it to how I can now.
yeah,
I was always the one to throw a hand towards people.
yep,
I just realized as of recently that not that I was purposely, intentionally trying to cash in, so to speak, on to the bank of those favors over the years, but several times I've needed a little hand. Just with some certain things that are just a little bit too large of a task to handle for one person. I find myself trying to spark up a conversation with one of several different people that I've helped over the years to no avail. And I just didn't understand how whenever they would ask me for help, they wouldn't ask right away. It would be they would beat around the bush a lot of times, and this is everybody. I'm not singling anybody out. People would beat around the bush, start talking about what they were doing, and how hard it was going to be, and then I just jump in and say, "Yeah, man, let's do it. Let's get it done."
Yeah, sometimes there's that. So one of my biggest pet peeves. So for anybody listening that knows me in the day to day, please try to avoid this. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people don't say what they want to say.
Right.
And they try to like bait you into like, for
Offering.
example, yeah, like they try to bait you into offering to help. Like, oh man, I got a lot of work to do. I have to haul this stuff. The other thing, like you alluded to also in there, is people start small talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like people that I haven't spoken to in years.
Right.
Hey, how's it going? How are you? How's everything? And then eventually you start to think, okay, what do they want? And then it comes out.
Where's the hook?
Which I know that seems kind of rude to do it that way, but I'd almost rather prefer it.
Yeah.
If you need me, just say, hey, I haven't talked to you in a long time, but I really need some help. You were the first person that came to my mind because of whatever reason.
Yeah, real.
Would you mind helping me out? Sure.
Absolutely.
Like I would prefer that method of approach than the other. But it's interesting because one of the things that you're always taught in terms of like being a good person and ethics and morals is like, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something along the lines of like a true measure of character is helping someone who can't do anything for you in return. So when you give money to a homeless person, like that person can't necessarily do anything to benefit you directly. So that's what true generosity is. However, it would be nice in the day-to-day life if the people that you help would reciprocate that a little bit.
Yeah, or just be willing to inconvenience their schedule or their time for you because you've done it for them.
Yeah.
I don't expect there to be a running tally.
Yep.
And that's not something I'm expecting. I just, excuse me. I just think that if you have received a lot of help from somebody, you have to realize that is inconveniencing them. Because nobody who has a family and a full-time job and a house to take care of and maintain and everything has an abundance of free time.
Yep.
Especially in the industry that I work in, or the industry or the career path that you have, where two different worlds completely, but both time consuming.
Yep.
So nobody like that has a whole lot of free time. So whenever they go out of their way to over and over countless times help you and put their stuff essentially on the back burner to make sure your stuff gets accomplished, when they insinuate, because a person like myself, I don't ask people for help.
Yep.
Very few people will I outright ask if they'll help me, because that's a pride thing. It's an ego pride thing that I have never been able to get over, and it's a struggle. I wish I could, to be honest, because I think more people would step up and say, "Hey, man, I can give you a hand."
I would assume, yeah.
But pick up on those subtle cues. Like, I mean, I'm able to pick up on your subtle cues, not you in general, but like if I'm able to pick up on their cues that they need help.
Yep.
Why can't they pick up on my cues? Because I know that I'm not being so subtle that they don't see them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I had a friend in college that used to say, you don't keep tabs on friendships.
No, I agree.
And I always liked that. However, friendship implies like a two-way mutual street. Mm-hmm. So you would think that if it's repetitive, like continuously helping a particular person or people, that they would like, I don't know, almost be a little bit guilty of continuously asking for help without like reciprocating it. And to be honest, man, there's a lot of problems that stem just beyond the stuff like we spoke about, like, oh, I helped you a lot, I wish you would help me. there are actually like some issues that you can run into from trying to give too much of yourself, both from a mental standpoint and a logistical standpoint. So I have a lot to talk about because I've also experienced those things as well. So let's go to a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I want to kind of like divulge and kind of delve into some of those items that I've ran into. So we'll hear back from you guys right after this quick commercial break.
As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well.
And we are back from our commercial break. All right, Justin, prior to the break, we're talking about helping people and how essentially how too much of a good thing can become a bad thing. So I mentioned right before we went off air about how one of the problems that I've run into could be a logistical thing. So for me, my schedule is everything, especially because my schedule isn't just my schedule, it's all my clients' schedules too, and the parents' schedule. So I found myself in a position in a much younger version of myself where, again, being someone who couldn't say no, where I tried to make everybody happy. And it's kind of like politics where people are going to dislike your side no matter what side you're on. Mm-hmm. So you might as well be firm in your stance. And it's the same thing with being in charge or being a leadership or being a leader. Like, leadership is sometimes a position where you're going to create enemies. But that has to happen, because if you try to get everybody to like you, it's not going to work out. So, and I'm not talking about personality or anything like that, but from a scheduling standpoint, couldn't say no to people. So one of the issues I ran into with my clients was somebody needs to change their day and time, right? Okay, I can't come on Thursday at 1 o'clock. Could I come Wednesday at 1 o'clock? Well, then I have someone at Wednesday at 1 o'clock. So me, being the person that I was, would try to schedule and change that person on Wednesday at 1 o'clock so the Thursday person could fit there. So Wednesday person says, yes, I can change, but I can only do Tuesday at 4. That's the only other slot I have. Okay, let me talk to my Tuesday at 4 person. And then what happens is it was this awful like cascade. Oh, it was terrible, dude. It's like dominoes. And then I was constantly, like, it would take me, if one person wanted to change times,
you have to move 10 things.
And it would take me, because you got to think response time too. Mm-hmm. It would take me 2 days to get that situated. And it was like this hellacious like task of trying to fit everybody and get everybody happy. Now, I kind of had a come to Jesus moment, so to speak, with that stuff, where when I stopped doing that and was like, okay, I can't do this because logistically it's hurting other people, because they make plans based off their training schedule, and then maybe they're the type of person that doesn't want to say no.
Right.
Especially because I've been helpful to them, so they want to be helpful to me, so then I kind of recreate the beast that I was starting or that I had undergone. Right. You know what I mean? So one of the things that I've changed is not doing that. Just giving people options that fit the schedule that I have. So a perfect example is I have a lot of back and forth that goes on with my group trainings, because I do a lot of youth programs and youth classes for kids. So obviously they can't drive or schedule anything themselves. So all the communication is done through parents. So when I have these parents that I'm communicating with, if you have 10 boys that are multi-sport athletes with 2 parents that work full-time jobs, scheduling them all for a day and time during the summer is awful, or heck, especially during the school year even, because the window's even limited. So what I would do is I would have these parents that approach me about these group classes. I would finalize who's in the group and create a group chat with the parents and say, okay, guys, let's figure out a time. And it was, okay, well, I can do Wednesday at 3. Oh, I can't do Wednesday at 3 because Johnny has baseball practice. Can we do Thursday at 3? Well, I can't do Thursday at all because My younger son, he has to go to gymnastics, and our daughter has cheerleading, so I'm out complete. Okay, well, can you do weekends? Well, yeah, but I can't do weekends because we have travel softball. Do you know what I mean?
It's just,
And it was constant to where it would take, literally, no joke, it would take weeks. And I've even had some parents step up in a role of communication, say, hey, Charlie, what I'm going to do is I'll talk to the rest of the parents. I'll get something figured out. We'll let you know a couple days and times and see which ones work for you. So I'm very grateful for those people. But what was funny is there's almost like a social experiment. So I recently had this with a group where there was a bunch of back and forth. And I kind of said, okay, I can only do, Wednesday at 10 o'clock or whatever the day or whatever the time was. And wouldn't you know it, everybody in the group
aligned themselves
could suddenly do that time.
Because they wanted the service.
Absolutely. And then I thought to myself, granted, they're paying for it, but this is the service that I'm offering. So you use that analogy and that point, and you transpose it into help, which is free. So then you think, okay, well, if I'm going to help someone, really shouldn't I be able to give, if I'm giving of my time and giving of my effort to be a good Samaritan to people, shouldn't there at least be a little bit of like say on when I'm able to do it?
Control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes
you have to realize you do.
I think that's the thing. Or maybe take that a step further. You do have the control, and maybe you realize you have the control, but you shouldn't feel guilty over exercising it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that's where I was I would feel guilty if I couldn't do certain things or help certain people. And, there was like little things that even like graduation parties, where as a teacher that works with athletes, you get all the kids in school, you get all the kids in the gym, you coach multiple sports, where it was so difficult for me to say no to anybody. And I would like put off things with my family or travel plans just to go to a graduation party to hand a kid a card. Whereas if I wasn't there, the kid probably wouldn't even notice. Most of the kids wouldn't even notice that I didn't attend the graduation party. Like, right. I'm not that conceited to think that a kid's going to be sitting at home thinking,
devastated.
Oh, wow, there's 200 people here, but Coach D didn't come. I feel bad. They don't even recognize that. But that's something that if I have plans, and I'm not talking like, I had plans to go to the grocery store. I'm talking like plans with family or I'm going to be out of town. I don't reschedule those. I just tell them, hey, I'm going to send you a card. Or there's been several kids that I've just taken out to dinner later on. Like, hey, yeah, I'll take you out to dinner. But regardless, I've been a little bit more safeguarding of my time, but just because I feel like there are other problems that stem from it, whether it's my own mental health or other people's schedules, because you have to take on more than you can chew. And I think that this sounds crazy to some people, just from a humanitarian perspective, but the overall message is I think that people need to be a little bit more self-aware or maybe even conservative of the time they're giving to other people.
Right. So that's the irony in that your whole beginning, especially the beginning of what you were saying, is that's something that just recently happened to me. And I think it's the reason why I brought the topic up to talk to you about it, because I had a friend not ask for help. That was the problem. That was the whole problem, right? He waited to ask for help until it was too late. I got this hard deadline on this project that has to get completed by this time.
Now, let me interrupt you real quick, just to preface what you're going to continue to say by touching on that, just because I wanted to state that there's always like outliers and exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So when Justin and I, this is for the listeners, like when you and I say, this guy didn't give me a heads up, he had a hard deadline that he just let me know about last minute, things like this happen.
Yeah.
Like there's like circumstance that goes into that.
Right.
So like every now and then you and I are fine. And it's even with like the time, I'm fine with giving a lot of time to someone. Like that stuff happens. What Justin and I are, and maybe we should have been more clear about this. What Justin and I are talking about is when it happens repetitively and continuously over the course of a decade,
right,
where you're helping, giving, and there's not much reciprocated.
Yeah, and so this is a situation where the help was certainly reciprocated over and over again. So I actually completely and totally changed all of my plans to make it happen for this person.
Yeah. who you've done so in the
Yeah,
past.
because we have done for each other the same way.
Okay, good. That's good to know.
So this is where the problem stemmed is they were moving. They had a project that needed completed before the renters could move into their house. And I literally had no time to give until right up until. So the very time that I had to give, I jumped in the truck, I drove up there, and we got to work.
Yep.
We realized that the project was physically impossible with the manpower we had to get it completed.
Mm-hmm.
So we put it on pause. We talked to the renters and lined it out that I can come and do it after they move in. It was a convenience thing for the renter, more or less. It was more or less my friend needed to do something out of convenience because the renter was being so cool about the timeline. So I said, yeah, absolutely, no problem. I'm sure I can get somebody to come help me because it's more than a 2-person job. It's like a 3 or 4-person job to get it completed. And that's where the problem lies is I've basically asked, not try to cash in on favors because I don't look at it that way. I just kind of asked around to people that I've helped before.
Yep.
That I have good relationships with because I'm not going to call the homeless guy on the corner that I've gave $5 to, or I held the door open for an old lady, or I pushed her buggy. I'm not going to call and ask her grandson to help me. That kind of stuff. That's not what I'm looking for. But that core of people that you have helped over and over and over and over again, and nobody showed.
Yeah.
So it's me and my wife doing a 4-men's job. It's manual labor.
Yep.
And it's just that part was frustrating to me.
Well, especially when you're crunched for time.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, okay, now there's a caveat there where you understand that the last minute thing that got sprung on you, you're also springing on other people.
Right.
But you'll notice, you being everybody, you'll notice that there's consistencies with those types of people where those same people will have no problem springing things on you last minute. But it's almost like you can rearrange your plans for everyone, but no one can rearrange their plans for you.
And that's what I'm finding. And I don't know. So the whole question that I had before was, without being inconsiderate or looking like you don't want to help people.
Sure.
Where do you draw the line? Like, okay, you're done. You're cut off. I just can't anymore because you're obviously not the type of person that's going to help me. And not that I think we do all this extra stuff for people to put a bank, to have a bank of favors to come back. But at some point, it's got to reciprocate, right?
There's 2 ways to go about it. The one way would be to slowly and gradually kind of work your way out of it. So, like, if they ask for help, just a couple times tell them no.
Right.
And then they gradually, you'll gradually, work your way out of it. I don't prefer that method because I don't think that it's helpful to them in terms of, changing their habits. I think that the best way to go about it would be the next time it gets brought up to have that conversation so that way they could maybe change a little bit. And we're not saying that whoever you're talking about, is a bad person, they need to change their life around. But, just say, because they might, I'm certain that a lot of people that are in this situation,
they just don't even know they're doing it.
Exactly. They have no clue. So just, be very good communicators with them and say, hey, I feel like I've helped you a lot. And it seems like sometimes when I ask for help from you, you're always busy. Is there a reason why you just can so readily ask me for help, but you don't really reciprocate that? And I just feel like having that open conversation with someone is going to go a lot further than just slowly trying to ostracize them and get them out of your life. I feel like you need to just definitively, yeah, for sure. And sometimes that conversation will even get perceived negatively.
Yeah.
Sometimes they may not, like you said, they may not realize they're doing it. They may say, oh crap, dude, I didn't even realize, but you're right. The last 3 times you've asked me for help, I've been busy. I should have done a better job of making sure that even though I was busy, some of the stuff I could have put off, so I should have helped you in that instance.
Right.
But you never know that you're in that situation until you're in that situation. And I know that I speak for both of us when I say, you and I with this conversation, also need to put out there that like our whole life isn't spent in like volunteerism and like servicehood. Like you and I are very helpful, of course, but we're not trying to be sitting on this podcast telling everybody how helpful we are and how generous we are and like we're giving of everything. Like we try to be, but I don't think that I think there's plenty of people that I know in my life that are more helpful than I am to other people. I just realized that with my schedule, I can only give so much.
Right.
And then, like I said, you throw in the point of the schedule and the fact that it's actually hurting other people then. You know, when I help someone, I may actually ruin the schedule of someone else. And it gets you in this like cyclical, kind of like you said, the vicious cycle of being stuck, not saying no to people and whatnot. And so I kind of have started to live by a little bit of like a hard rule in a sense that it's like, hey, first come, first serve, you know,
Right.
where it's like whoever is first on the schedule, that's what I'm sticking to. And if I have this opening, I have this opening. And like I said, the more times I've been in that situation, the more that I realize that people will
respect it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if they have to. And I think you've done a really good job of prioritizing your time, your schedule.
Yeah.
You know, once it's on the schedule, it's on the schedule. I can't change it because like you said, it's affecting 40 other people.
Yeah.
So that's something that I have to figure out for myself is how do you do that first come, first serve when it's really, really random at times?
Yeah.
You know, but because I could, you know, I feel like I could end up falling into the trap of I planned on doing the weed eating at that exact time. So I'm sorry, but I can't help you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, so I don't want that to happen either because that's not who I am. That's not what I'm about.
Well, I think that people will possibly misconstrue this message. And I think that it's important to clarify this also is the fact that like little things can be rescheduled.
Yeah.
Like it's not like someone's going to say to me, hey, I need help moving. Would you be able to help move me? Oh, no, man, I got a load of laundry to do. I'm sorry, I can't. Like, it's not like just because we have plans to do something doesn't mean the plans can't be changed. But it's, number one is the big plans should probably remain intact. And then the other thing is that you would want some type of not necessarily kickback, but you would like those favors kind of returned from time to time.
I would like people to at least think about it.
You know,
remember something about it. So whenever you get strapped, you get you have a guy or two to lean on for a hand.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that's like a good takeaway message for today. It's just maybe you are the person that is asking someone for help all the time, and you constantly have people helping you, which is fine, but just be respectful of other people's time and be self-aware that they're helping you to make sure that you either reciprocate that or at least be very, very effusive with your thanks to that person. And then likewise, maybe you're the person that is doing the helping. Just be a little bit more self-aware of your time and see if that maybe you taper down, then things might change a little bit.
Right.
All right. So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Trees podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 142. As always, we appreciate your listenership and we look forward to hearing back from you guys next week.
Unbreakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to the edge and take